Well, a warm welcome to this talk. Now, as you probably know, we've covered some of Module 4, Vaccines and Therapeutics module of the UK COVID inquiry. And today I want to report on this, the People's Vaccine Inquiry Press Conference. Now, this was held last week in Westminster. And the aim of the People's Inquiry is to give their assessment of Module 4 of the UK Public Inquiry. Now, I did start covering some of the UK Public Inquiry, but stopped because I found it too frustrating. Although we did give credit to some really courageous people who spoke there about their injuries and the people that they worked with who were injured and bereaved. So this is not a public inquiry, it's a people's inquiry. And they want to present unanswered questions and unasked questions. And cover vital evidence that's not covered by the remarkably expensive official inquiry. And I'm going to play some of the people that are on there. We're going to start off with Dr. Jonathan Engler, who is both medically qualified and legally qualified. So over to Dr. Engler for his clip now to introduce the scene of the inquiry.
My name's Jonathan Engler. I am a qualified doctor and lawyer, and I co-chair a heart group with Claire, from whom you'll be hearing from later, and the others as well. The People's Vaccine Inquiry was formed a year ago, when it became obvious to a number of us that the vaccine module of the UK COVID inquiry, Module 4 as it's known, was not interested in hearing the full truth about the products known as COVID vaccines. Several of us decided it was important to create a public record of what the inquiry seemed determined to not talk about. We've been watching Module 4 closely, and our fears that this process would in fact be a whitewash have been fully justified. The framing for this inquiry was made clear right from the start in the first session, when Baroness Hallett and Hugo Keith stressed how the inquiry must not be used as a platform for anyone to spread what they termed anti-vaccine mis- or disinformation, as if such terms were amenable to unequivocal, objective interpretation. But throughout the inquiry, many false assertions have been made, and the inquiry has ensured that these remain unchallenged. So we would ask, who exactly is spreading mis- or disinformation? Amongst the misleading, questionable, or downright false claims made during the inquiry and presented as if they were unassailable facts have been the following. The COVID vaccine rollout was a huge success overall. All drugs with the name vaccine are always a net good for the population. The COVID vaccine saved millions of lives worldwide. COVID vaccines broke the link between infection and severe outcomes. Pandemics can only be overcome with mass vaccination, a claim for which there is actually no precedent, and the COVID jabs were the only way out of the lockdown measures. Restrictions which, we might add, were unnecessary in the first place. We had no choice but to roll out as fast as possible without the benefit of long-term safety data. There have been serious side effects and deaths, but these are rare, very rare, or in some cases extremely rare, and we cannot know for certain if they're caused by the vaccine. Vaccine hesitancy is always bad and a problem needing to be solved. Anything outside of public health or government communications which questions vaccine safety or effectiveness is automatically mis- or disinformation and must be censored or prevented to protect vaccine confidence and public health. It seems clear to us that the structure of the inquiry and the parameters set for the questioning of the core participants were framed to promote a carefully curated story around the COVID vaccines, which permitted minimal criticism of the products and the circumstances around their rollout, while attempting to affirm the programme's resounding success. Despite their valiant efforts, the few dissenting voices who are allowed to speak are having their testimony constrained by both the questions asked and the answers they are permitted to give. Here are some of the more egregious examples. The vaccine injured and bereavement groups have been prevented from presenting anything which supported their concerns, which was deemed, by the inquiry of course, to be science. By way of specific example, Kate Scott, from Vaccine Injured and Bereaved UK, was trying to make the point that for 100% of her group, the vaccines could not be regarded as safe, at which point Baroness Hallett stepped in to stop her, saying they must leave discussions of scientific evidence and acceptable safety levels to the experts later in the inquiry. Of course, these carefully chosen experts ultimately left much unsaid and focused on fully supporting the safety claims made for these products. They ignored many key points, including, and this is in no way an exhaustive list, firstly, that safety signals, including deaths, in the trials for the Pfizer product at least, were hidden. Secondly, the fact that the manufacturing process for the rolled out product was totally different from that given to nearly all the trial participants. This was essentially glossed over by June Rain being asked the wrong question, which appeared deliberately designed to give the MHRA a way out. Thirdly, that there were in fact very prominent post-rollout safety signals which were not acted upon. The style of questioning of the vaccine injured was unacceptably condescending at times, with Mr. Keith posing lengthy but often simplistic and superficial closed questions, which had the effect of preventing witnesses from expanding on their points. The AstraZeneca representative was not cross-examined at all by any of the core participants' barristers, and every other witness faced one or two core participant barristers, including Pfizer and Moderna, yet no reason was given for this. If, as has been suggested, this was because of pending legal action, this should have been openly acknowledged and stated by Baroness Hallett. Public health and regulator decision-makers faced what can only be described as softball, mainly closed questions from inquiry councils, which appeared designed to support the official narrative, while preventing the need for further interrogation or supporting evidence. Now, if we can just put up the first slide. Do I just advance? Should have given this a go beforehand. Yeah. So, in summary, and I'm sure that Caroline Christian would agree with this, although we're possibly stating it a little bit more strongly, we would characterize Module 4 as framing to fit the official narrative, obfuscation of uncomfortable information, promulgation of misleading information, and whitewash with limited hangout. And for those who aren't familiar with the term limited hangout, it's where they authorize a little bit of truth to emerge, which is critical of the official position, designed as a sort of steam valve, escape valve for people so that they think the truth is finally coming out. And here's a few illustrative quotes which sort of overlap with what I've said before, illustrate what I've said before. So Baroness Hallett before the impact video. First, the film is not evidence. Second, it is not intended to be indicative of the experience of the vaccinated population of the UK. And third, it does not reflect my views. Hugo Keith before the impact video, and I don't even think he actually needed to say anything before the impact video. He chose to say it. In the public interest, it's important that I seek to emphasize that the references in this video to the obvious and well-known fact that in very rare cases, vaccination has serious side effects, must not be used as a platform to seek to undermine the vital public health role that vaccination plays in keeping people safe from disease, or to try to seek to argue that at a population level, vaccination is not overwhelmingly beneficial. And in Hugo Keith's opening statement, given the many successes of the vaccine and therapeutics program, and undoubted success of the programs, you may conclude that. Oh, I thought there was one more here. Can you just advance it one more? Yeah. Hugo Keith, at the beginning of his cross-examination of Charlotte from UKCV families, don't know, and it is very difficult to find out whether, referring to their injury or death, was causatively connected to the vaccine, was coincidental, or was connected to the COVID virus. I would argue that if you don't look for connections adequately, you'll always be able to deny there is one. And that's why we say what we say about this module.
Well, there we go. Dr. Engler daring to question the huge success that was the whole UK government management of this. I made a long list of things here, but I'm not going to go through them. Dr. Engler put it so well himself. We could talk about the trials, we could talk about the bait and switch, we could go into softball questions. Good grief, do we need a Bobby Kennedy in this country? And a new phrase that I'm vaguely familiar with there, limited hangout. So you make the people think that they're getting to the truth, when in fact the hangout is indeed limited. So thanks very much, Dr. Engler, on that. We will, in future videos, cover some of the other talks as well that are on this. In the meantime, I'll post the links to the Substack, which is all there with the links that you can go through for yourself. And some of the doctors and experts speaking on here I do know, and I know the ones I know personally are people of the highest caliber, well worth listening to. But for now, thank you for watching.